Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, and joining me, as always this morning, is Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, how's it going?
Howdy. Doing fine. Happy to be here. Ready to get going.
Awesome.
Strapped in.
Yeah, it's we record this in the morning, and so I'm drinking my coffee if you're watching on YouTube here.
Mug check.
But you know what? I thought I need a sexier glass, so I've got a wine glass here for it.
Oh, I thought you were going to get some morning wine going on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a much sexier glass.
There we go. Yeah.
Right on. Each week we bring on someone who does not follow the Housewives or Bravo and make them watch the episodes to get their perspectives. This week's outsider is the very funny Jordan Welwood.
Hey guys. They say actions speak louder than words. That's why I'm constantly screaming.
That's great. I've never heard that one. Who's that? That's so good. No, let Craig tell me.
No, that must be an original.
That's an original.
That's an original?
Yeah.
Wow. Hot start. Wow.
Yeah, that is excellent. Well, so stoked to have you here, Jordan. Do you want to just give everyone a background on sort of what reality TV you do follow, if any, and what your expectations were kind of going into watching these shows?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because huge outsider when it comes to, housewife stuff for sure. But I think the one for me was Jersey Shore and the first season specifically, because that was like the one reality show where I always felt like it felt so authentic, and at least in the first season, right? Because they're getting into fights, and you're like, you never saw that on TV. And then, by the second season, they were already famous, right? And they're taking home like 2-3 girls at a time. But the first one, it's like, I don't know, it just felt like these people would be doing this if there was no cameras on them.
Yeah, for season 1 Jersey Shore really felt like lightning in a bottle for me. And there's a huge contrast between season 1 and season 2, which for me, season 2 just fucking sucked. And it was it was a classic lightning in a bottle situation, I thought, where they really just captured something that was just kind of a one-off.
It was a circus. Yeah. They put some cameras on these people. And you're like, I guarantee these people, this is just their lives. It felt like a documentary, whereas it became more of a produced show later on.
Yeah, just like trail cams in Jersey.
So many classic lines. But yeah, no, I remember we even had like a season 2 party where I did like a blowout in my hair, and
nice.
The girls we were with like dressed all, Jersey. And it was like, we like, that was when I was like fully into it.
Yeah, I would say that is also the number one show that people mention in terms of what reality shows they've got like for context when they join us on here. It definitely is a show that really like changed the shape of reality television. And one thing that's like really noticeable, at least in my mind, is that's the first like reality show that I remember having like an after show where there was like, there was people doing a show like kind of exploring what was going on in those shows, like really notable. And I mean, we as a podcast that explores these reality shows, we owe a lot to the trailblazers in that in the form that we use,
like Talking Dead style, like really breaking it down after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And those people were also, I think, trailblazers. The stars of the show were trailblazers in having like better pay and better conditions for reality TV stars too, because they refused to come back for a second season unless they got a massive salary increase, because up until that point, reality TV stars were actually paid like a pittance. They were paid almost nothing. And they kind of went to the bargaining table and said, like, we're TV stars, so just like a scripted TV star, we should be paid like the stars of the show. And that had an impact on the industry. So
it's because watching that first season, I assumed they were just going to get a whole new bunch of people in like a game show, like Survivor or something. And then you're like, no, like they're sticking with these people. And then they became kind of the reoccurring. I don't know if they were the first ones to do that, but I do remember, like, they're bringing them all back because, like, you're not going to find another Snooki or whatever.
Yeah, totally. So I want to get into our roundtable discussion. This week, I put out the theme of archetypes. So I think the character archetype is something that you'll see, it's typically very specific genre to genre, but I want to kind of get your thoughts in terms of what what archetypes we see within reality TV, and what does it mean to be like an archetype within reality TV.
If anybody brings up Carl Jung, I'm tearing off my mic back and storming out. Fair warning.
Well, Dylan, do you want to lead us off?
Sure. I mean, I guess, yeah, in terms of there being like expectations of like set characters and personalities and stuff, I think that's on the whole a very good thing for the shows. It's always helpful, I think, to have a frame to play against. I think it's similar to the way that for me the shows work better because there's more of a framing of everything and there's expectations,
Right.
Rather than it just being like in a void and trying to define itself against nothing. I think it's always helpful to have something to define yourself against, and it's easier to set off a personality if you have a personality type that the audience as well as yourself has in mind that you can kind of bounce off of, and then from there you can break expectations and change it. But I think it's the fact that reality TV has evolved to the point that we have a lot of expectations that we're bringing into every episode with us, and that whenever time that there's going to be new characters graduated into a show, we have expectations for how they're going to slot into what role they're going to take. I don't think that's a negative for me. I think that's a positive that that they have a framing device that can be used to then be broken, bent, referenced, but it gives you something to some structure to grab onto. It gives you a stick that the peach tree can grow around, as they
Yeah,
say.
I definitely agree. I think like in terms of having, a framing or a solid like foundation of, let's structure this show. It's in this setting. We need these archetypes in order for it to like move forward. I think that that is, that's positive. That's how you make compelling television. But I think one of the things that is interesting to me is in terms of at least the Real Housewives and to an extent Vanderpump Rules, I feel like yes, there are definitely like archetypes within that, but they're less, they're less forward and they're less identifiable than in something like The Bachelor. So when you're watching a show where, Jordan, you had mentioned Jersey Shore, you're following these people multiple seasons long, whereas if you contrast that with something like The Bachelor, where each season you're bringing on basically a full new cast, it's a lot more of it's a lot easier to identify people that are like, okay, well, she's going to be the villain. This person is like the sad girl. This girl's the virgin. Like you see all of those like people that are very like cookie cutter, and it typically plays out in a very like similar manner as the seasons progress. But with Housewives, you have people that are on these shows, like in some cases over a decade. They 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 take on different archetypes and different personas over the course of their time on these shows. Like someone might start as a hero and go into a villain. Someone might morph into a pot stirrer. Um, and I think that the people and the characters are just a little bit more nebulous, and I think there's a lot more nuance in how archetypes are used within the context of a show like Real Housewives. And I think a lot of those archetypes are almost found in post production or in production. They will be like, okay, what is these stories that we're seeing told through this season, and how do we fit these people into these roles, and let's edit it in a way so that we've got these timeless stories that have timeless archetypes, but we need to frame these real people into these stories and block it out in a way that makes it more compelling, because I think since they are real people, their motivations are a lot deeper than just being a TV villain.
Mhm.
Yeah, I bet you guys could probably, after a long enough time of watching all the different shows and the multiple seasons, you could probably create your own classification of archetypes for these shows, right? Because
You could do like a Linnaean taxonomy of
yeah, like the only
Housewives
one I could pick out
archetypes.
is there's always the sage, right? Like there's the the kind of matriarchal one who's like, I'm going to take control of the situation and bring everyone. I'm the older wise one. Like that's really the only one I was able to kind of pick out. Um, but you're right. Like I bet you could create kind of a subcategory for these shows, and like it almost seems closer to wrestling, like where you, like you said, you have the heel where it's like, oh, this season they were the good guy, and then now they're going,
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan's end up NWO, like switching teams and switching it up, that kind of thing. But I wonder how much the actual participants are coming up with their own character stuff, or how much is being kind of dictated to them. That's what I would be curious to know.
Yeah, I think like the hand of production is something that we talk about and think about a lot
The
on
ham
this show.
fist.
Yeah. And I think that, it changes over the course of like a housewife's career how heavy of a hand production has in terms of shaping their character, because when someone comes on and if they're a newbie, they're like, it's pretty clear that they kind of don't know what they're doing and they're floundering a lot. Like I think that's one of the things that's exciting about watching like a new housewife come on, is seeing them kind of flounder and see how they are manipulated by the like much more experienced housewives. And production is also a force that plays into the whole like storytelling paradigm in a big way, and they are engaging in their own manipulation of these housewives, right? There's they're feeding them information at times that will influence how they interact within a certain scenario. They're setting them up, there's a lot of manipulation that's happening from production as well. And I think that as as the years go by, and I think in this latest episode of Real Housewives of Orange County, we're kind of seeing um Gina being a little underestimated in terms of how savvy she is as a housewife. We'll talk about that a bit later. But as you see someone progress and get more experience, I think that you see them play their cards like a little bit closer to their chest and not be so reactive to the information that they're getting and needing to like play it immediately, but thinking about it and figuring out how to leverage it.
Yeah, and I think also over time, the people who become canny veterans on the show, they wield that influence the other way too, because the producers are going to be influenced by the cast members as well.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
two-way street for sure.
it's going to be a two-way street, right? And somebody who's like been on the show for a while, who's a bit of a star player, like LeBron James in his 10th year isn't going to be told by a coach what to do. He's going to be the coach himself when he's out in the court. You know,
Yeah.
like at a certain point, these veteran stars are going to be going out there and they're going to be influencing production and having a lot of say in how things are going to play out.
Yeah,
The
I mean
production team's almost like a character too, right? Like you can hear them
Mm-hmm.
off camera, asking their questions every once in a while. You can hear them stirring the pot a little bit.
yeah. And I mean, we even saw this on the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion that we talked about last week, where Teresa times her storm out in order to like have Andy follow her and apologize, and wielding her power as an iconic housewife. And another element of that interaction, and I think we're veering a little bit off topic here, but I want to get this out. Another element is that these producers, it's their job is to build relationships with these housewives so that they can be more effective. So they can't
Mm-hmm.
be so manipulative in a way where they are going to lose the trust of whoever they're trying to handle. So I think there's a delicate balance there that we don't really get to see, but we can speculate about. But that's just very, very interesting to me. Did you guys have any other thoughts on the idea of archetypes within reality TV?
No, I do think it's like it's unfortunate to have audiences that are going to like force people to try to be in boxes, but I think in terms of the way it actually plays out on the show, like I've said, I think it's more of a positive than a negative, because people are still going to be able to do what they want to do, but it'll be a little more efficient when you have a framing that you can play off of.
Do you think that reality stars in these Bravo shows are more insulated from the influence, like external influence of, the audience putting them into this archetypical box.
They seem to me, sorry, just to jump in there, like a lot of them have a background in acting and in, they're coming in with a lot of like entertainment experience. Like it's not like, Survivor where this guy's a mechanic or whatever. It's like these people are like, they almost like, they kind of slot them in, like you said, almost like players, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like they're coming in and they're like, okay, you want me to play this role? Even the one, Heather in Orange County there, she's like an actress with like quite a bit of experience, it seems like, but I don't think it's a stretch for some of them, and they're probably using it to their benefit, probably more than we think.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you're right, especially on the shows that we watched, there is a lot of background in sort of the entertainment industry. There are other franchises where there's like a substantially less amount of experience within the entertainment industry. Salt Lake City comes to mind immediately as one where there isn't. So I feel like I'm curious about whether or not that really plays into how likely they are to try to fit into an archetype, because on somewhere like Beverly Hills, where we're seeing stars that have a lot of soap opera experience, we see people like Eileen Davidson and Lisa Rinna who come on, and they're very like effective at stirring the pot, specifically Lisa Rinna especially. It's You see Lisa like just jump into this villain character that is able to stir the pot, and she's just very natural at doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a difference between how much you can see the roles that are being forced on you or applied to you, to put it less so violently, in advance, depending on your background, I guess, in entertainment. Like the more entertainers will probably understand right away, like, this is how I'm going to slot in. And people who aren't from an entertainment background might just kind of have the production and the post-production put them in a box without them necessarily seeing that that's what's happening.
Yeah, totally.
Especially in Atlanta, they were all very, a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So they're like, the house is going to help my brand. They seem like very brand savvy people, right?
Yeah.
So they could probably play the villain to a point, but if it starts to hurt their, interests outside, then, that's a problem, right? So
yeah, totally. All right, I want to jump into our recaps for this week. Jordan, which of these shows did you find the most compelling while you were watching?
I'm going to have to go with Atlanta. I felt like very different, like, as someone who's never seen these before, like huge difference between the two.
Yeah.
I felt like, it was almost more business-minded people versus entertainers, less children in the Atlanta one. It did feel like, I don't want to say more authentic, but it did feel like some of these women would be having these screaming matches if their cameras weren't on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas there was a lot more plotting. Kind of Orange County seemed a little more, which has been around longer, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
Yeah, slightly longer. Yeah.
Slightly longer. Yeah. So, I kind of enjoyed Atlanta. If I had to pick between the two.
All right. Well, so what were your
butts.
Very important to the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I came into this thing, I'm like, where are the butts at? Like, let's do this. And Atlanta did not disappoint. So
So what were your first impressions of the cast on Atlanta? Any standouts?
It's interesting, right? So the main kind of the first girl we get to see coming in, I believe was Cherie, right? Cherie, yeah, it was.
I think Drew. Drew opened with
okay.
Drew.
Yeah. Let me see here. I got my notes here.
She was meeting the music video director, Rage.
Music video director, that's right. Yeah, so she was in
Rage.
Step Up. Yeah, Rage was actually, I had a lot of notes on Rage here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then her husband's name's Ralph, which is, unfortunate for him. But yeah, that whole thing of like Rage came in, he looks like Phil Collins, but then he has this black scent. And then it was like, she's like, I gotta get Rage, to hook up this video. Like I noticed with these shows, they introduce people so quickly and then they cut away, but they spend a lot of time on like the serving staff at these restaurants, like taking the order. I'm like, you're chewing up all this time taking the order, and then it like, who is this guy? And then it kind of cuts off pretty quick. But this one, like, they really kind of put the conundrum was that, you know, she wants her husband in, but like, does he have abs? Like this Rage is like, I don't know if I can use this guy. He might be a flabby. His name's Ralph, you know? And then she's like, this is going to cause problems, but like, it's my career. So if I have to get ab guy, then, you know, that could be a problem for Ralph, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure on Ralph right off the hop here with Drew.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a relationship that is like, well, they have, since the season stopped filming, they have got a divorce. Ralph and Drew are no longer. So definitely a relationship that is under a lot of tension, and for Rage to come in and be like, yeah, well, your guy's too fat for this. Probably not helping the situation.
Sight unseen. He probably just doesn't have the abs.
Yeah. No. Ralphs are too flabby.
Yeah, I can't have a Ralph. Yeah, and like I wanted to do more research on Rage, but like you know, he seems like a pretty kind of mid-level you know, but like a successful producer of some sort, you know.
Yeah, I think they said that he did a music video for like Soulja Boy or something like that.
Yeah, I think maybe said T.I. or something. I don't remember.
Oh,
and then he couldn't recall Step Up. Like he didn't remember.
Come on, Rage.
It's Rage.
Ask your adult children if they still talk to you. They'll tell you what Step Up is. This motherfucker's trying to big up. He's trying to big man Drew by pretending he doesn't know what Step Up is.
Yeah. There's like 42 step ups.
You're like 50 years old and wearing a hoodie, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Get it together. I had a very visceral negative reaction to Rage. No time for that.
So they call him Rage, you know. That's part of the
that's part of the Rage
Speaking
experience.
of archetypes.
Yeah.
Also, to be clear, you know, Drew's role in Step Up, very important to the film. And
I have not seen Step Up, so maybe I'm just
Step
as
Up?
bad as Rage. Yeah.
That's the OG one. That's the Channing Tatum one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one with Channing Tatum or whatever Teresa comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Drew's acting in Step Up is like great, but you know, nobody's is except for Channing. That's why that's the only thing people remember from the movie generally. But like she's one of the main characters, but she has the like best friend role, like the main girl's best friend role. So that's like really rough for like an underwritten screenplay to just have that role where she's just basically has to, you know, stand around wearing a beret and like a jean mini skirt over tights and like a really long scarf, and all her lines are like, he's cute though, isn't he? Admit it, you like him. Like just like the worst
dry role for that movie.
Scraps. But the very best scene in Step Up, and I think all my stepbrothers and stepsisters will agree with me on this, it's what we call ourselves in the fandom. It's the big centerpiece in the middle where Drew actually gets to sing a song, and she's the only character in the movie who has like a song in the movie, and it's like a very dynamic performance that absolutely anchors the whole scene. Very important. So I just wanted to put some respect on Drew's good name there on the Step Up franchise, because of this Rage motherfucker apparently thinks it's no big deal. But you know what? That was a great role and an important movie, an important landmark. And even Drew seems to kind of feel a need to underplay it. She's like, oh yeah, there's like 20 of them now. I was in the first one. There wasn't like 20 of them. There are 5 or 6 Step Up movies.
I feel like you should start a Step Up podcast after this.
And I'm not saying 5 or 6 because I don't know. It's because the canon status of the 2020 Chinese production Step Up Year of the Dance is disputed. but there are 5 canonical Western movies, including the very best one, the 4th one, 2012, Step Up Revolution, which is just a brilliant, brilliant film and the best movie to come out of the Occupy Wall Street movement. I'm serious about that. Which
God,
Step Up movies were we talking about?
Yeah, Drew. I'm pro Drew. I'm with you.
Yeah.
She
does more than a few woo-woos in that movie anyways. It's a good performance.
I want you to send me more information about this, you know, this Chinese production. Is it like a Shen Yun thing? Like...
Oh my God. I haven't actually seen Year of the Dance, which is the actual name for the Chinese Step Up production, which I find really funny. I don't know if they talk about organ harvesting in it. I'll have to investigate that.
There's just no black people in their version. Is that the Chinese? They gotta remove her out of the poster.
If it's the Falun Gong version, probably,
yeah.
So, what were your highlights from Atlanta?
A couple different highlights here. Obviously, the Gucci brunch. That was the big. They were really hyping that thing up the whole time.
Yeah,
she's like, I'm gonna do, and I like the product placement too. Like every restaurant they went to got a little bit of a, comedians in cars getting coffee breakdown of their, it's like it's a real advertisement for these spots. They spent a lot of time on the waiters, and then they went to the cryo rejuvenation, which was a weird
yeah.
product placement.
We've seen like one of these Cairo cryo places before, at least once on Beverly Hills that comes to mind, and it's always just such a like bizarre business model. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the previous episode, we had that fucking weird, like semi-abandoned office space with IV bags hanging from the ceiling. Like, how many of these fucking fly-by-night, sketchy, presumably semi-legal, like alternative medical therapy places are there in strip malls in Atlanta?
Stem
It's starting
cells,
to feel very dubious. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're great for your complexion. Yeah, no, the Gucci dinner, like, it was meant to be this, or the Gucci brunch was meant to be this, this big bringing together of everybody and mending of these past relationships or whatever. And then like I was like, how long until this devolves into a screaming match? And then
Yeah,
I
it
just
wasn't
kept
very
thinking
long.
about,
Yeah.
yeah, I just kept thinking about all the patrons trying to have brunch. And I'm like,
Yeah.
imagine you see like Housewives will come in. You're like, oh man, like we're not gonna Sunday brunch. It's gonna get real. And then they did a nice cutaway to these girls being like, they're screaming in there, like, which I was
It's
like, oh,
like when you
they
get
gave us
like
that.
seated at a restaurant next to a table that's got like a toddler. It's like, oh man, we're not gonna enjoy this meal, are we? It's
Yeah,
like, oh, we're
exactly.
next to the Housewives.
They're all Gucci'd out. You're just walking in. You're like, this is gonna pop off pretty quick.
I can say that because I've got toddlers, so I know the feeling of being the scene at a restaurant.
Yeah, people will glare like they're not even making noise yet. People are like watching it like it's a grenade about to blow.
Yeah.
They're just staring at Marlo's glasses, like, what the fuck is that on her face?
Yeah, big pointy Batman glasses.
Yeah,
She was the real villain of that Gucci brunch, right? Like,
yeah, well, she is definitely getting a villain edit this season. She's not getting a lot of sympathy from the cameras here. I think that it's a little bit. Dylan, you mentioned last week that it's a little bit unfair to her because she obviously is grieving, but yeah, she's not getting a very good edit here.
I thought she had a decent episode. Honestly, I thought she did pretty good this episode. I thought mostly because I was not feeling Candy's explanations. I thought her explanations were really bad in terms of being like, I lost my brother. Okay, yeah, good start, and then being like, I got over it. Okay, that doesn't mean that you should expect other people to just get over, tragedy because you did. And then saying like, don't come to me expecting sympathy. I'm not the sympathetic friend. I'm the motivational friend. Like
that was one of my favorite parts. Was she's like, I'm not sentimental, and then just starts crying immediately. She's like, my brother died, and you're like, oh man, yeah, you're really not sentimental.
Yeah, I just thought that was not a convincing excuse. Like, not saying it wasn't a convincing explanation of her mindset, but like to be like, this is the reason why I'm gonna double down on saying that I don't need to show you any sympathy for your family member you lost. Wasn't I wasn't buying it.
I feel a lot of like sympathy towards Candy, and I think that maybe I'm biased a bit because she's been a favorite of mine for a long time. But I thought that her excuse, maybe not the words that were coming out of her mouth were acceptable, but the way that she acted and the way that she kind of operated in this, I got the sense that she doesn't like engaging in anything relating to grief because she actually hasn't dealt with her own. Because we see her talk about how she got over it and like moved on. But like that shell is so easily cracked, like you said, Jordan.
Yeah.
Like she's, as soon as she has to engage with that, a whole like bunch of trauma just comes pouring out of her. So I feel like that might color the way that she's operating in these situations, because I think that maybe she just doesn't like to let herself get into a place, because she does present a very, very hard exterior, And so I think that informs a bit of how she's operating here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. That she also is kind of angry at Marlo for pushing this argument that's based on her grief, because she doesn't think it's fair, and she doesn't want to have to probe that deep in herself too. Like you mentioned, she doesn't want to have to force herself to to come into contact with a grief that she's never really properly treated.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea of like, I don't know, because they really, I guess they kind of got to it at the end of the brunch, which was she's like, the reason I'm mad was you didn't support me the way I wanted during my grief, which most grieving people aren't too, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you didn't show up at my house, or you didn't, she gave you space, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's so weird. If someone's actually grieving, they're probably not concerned with, how somebody did that, unless it's like your brother or something didn't show up or give you a phone call. But like, I don't know how well these people know each other. It's kind of hard to determine that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that this happened at a point where um, Marlo was a friend of the cast. She wasn't a full blown housewife, so I wonder if maybe that plays into how Candy handled things, because you know um, there is a element to all these friendships that is like it is dictated by the status of the show, right? This is not a completely real scenario, right? There are external factors like what your role is on this show. So, I mean, Marlo has been around the show for a long time, and you would expect Candy to be a little bit more sympathetic. But I think that Marlo and Candy are like every time they talk about this, both of them are talking about two different things. Like,
Yeah.
Marlo is talking about like you didn't support me as a friend. You didn't um like you weren't there for me. You didn't help me when I was grieving. And Candy's like, you're trying to put, you're trying to frame me as a business owner that like has violence within their workplaces. Like you're trying to frame me as someone that is like running these gangland institutions. So I think they're both like talking about different things. And I think Cherie has the right idea in terms of getting them together. So it's not like playing telephone via Drew. um, but yeah, obviously this Gucci brunch was a situation that was set up to just blow up and
Mm-hmm.
have that conflict revisited.
Is that kind of how they phase in like new people? Like they're like, oh, you're a friend. Like, you're like kind of like a supporting cast member. You're not a full, it's featuring Courtney or featuring whoever. Cause that's what it seemed like that Courtney. Is she like a full cast member, or is she just kind of like a friend
No,
who they're,
she's a friend of status. Yeah.
because they used her like a pylon in that lunch. They're like, hey, you're going to buffer these people.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, I liked her. She was funny. She was like, it seemed like she was just like happy to be there,
Yeah, I think
quick to
like
apologize.
they typically they will typically not have um the new people on the show will be not too sure about what their status is on the show, in terms of whether they're going to be a full-blown housewife or if they're going to be a friend of. And it kind of depends on how they operate within the season, if they're giving enough to get that, you know get whatever they hold. In the case of Atlanta, it's a peach in the intro. They're holding a peach. So it's up to production to decide that. Often you will see people kind of start out as friends of and get promoted, but also it's not uncommon for someone to just come in and be full blown housewife, uh, and us have not seen them before.
Gotcha. Well, one big takeaway from the Gucci is Marlowe's life coach advice, which is to exit if you feel like you're going to snap. As you called it, a storm out. Is that like a classic move? She's like, "This is my," and then they brought her back. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's good
that's
life coach advice. Just
yeah.
take off.
I was Yeah, when she said that, I was like, what is this life coach doing? Like telling her to like think things through and
This life coach is going to ruin the show.
yeah.
Yeah, the producer needs to step in and talk to the life coach. This isn't
Producer's
healthy
gonna-
for you. Shut
Producer's
up.
going to show up at the life coach's house and like leave bullets in their mailbox and kneecap them and shit. Just stay away from Marlo.
Yeah.
Did you have any other highlights from Atlanta?
Well, I mean, Ralph got the part
Yeah.
of husband.
And
to
let's
his
be fair
wife.
to Ralph. He's in great shape. Come on. Just because he doesn't have maximal ab definition, the guy's in great shape. Come on.
He's jacked up. He's jacked up like a truck,
he,
you know?
He definitely focuses on his arms and his chest and not so much the core, but, you know, not going to fault him for that.
He has to go to brunch too, you know? Like,
But I think that's not the worst situation for him to be in, is to get the role because of like a scheduling conflict or whatever it was, because the other person can't show up. Like, that's worse than just being turned down in the first place.
Yeah.
To be
there's a
like,
weird
come in
little
as the
whisper.
backup.
The girl whispers in Rage's ear, and it's like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he's the one. Like, it seemed a little...
He's the one who's there.
Yeah.
I was really hoping when Ralph entered the scene that he was going to, like, come into the room with his shirt off, showing that he's, like, sexy enough for this to try to, like, win the role on the day. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah. I'd love it if he just had a big fat gut, and they were right. Rage was right the whole time, and they had to like CGI him. Cost of production twice as much money.
Like one of those like Snapchat filters, except for your abs.
Just grinding on him. It's
Rage
all
just
clipping
comes
out.
in with like a piece of like green like foam matting and starts taping it around his core and be like, "We're gonna fix this in post."
Chroma green core set. Dylan, what were your highlights from Atlanta?
Like I said, I did actually like Marlo this episode. I found her funny. I found her glasses fucking insane. I loved her little fashion corner bit where she goes over everybody's Gucci outfits and says things like, "Candy looked like she's captain of the bowling team." Great stuff. I love what she says. She's as ignorant as Scooter Brown. And then they're like, is Scooter Brown ignorant? And she's like, I don't know. Did that stick together? I just thought maybe it sounded good.
She's like, I don't know who that is.
That was really funny to me because respect, you know, I respect like just like throwing a line out there, even if you're not sure whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah.
Just throw out a reference and be like, does it stick to the wall? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. We'll see. You'll tell me. That was really funny. I like it. I thought the lunch was bad for Kenya, who not only showed up wearing like Chanel, I think, like missed the assignment, and also was just like being really like sniping and like childish and petty, making comments the whole time. But that was a bad lunch for Kenya. And I think once again, I think I've said this a number of times, but I think consistently Sonia seems to be very reasonable and always like catches strays. Despite that, she keeps getting shit from people, even though I think she always seems to be like on solid ground.
Yeah,
where she's coming from.
But you can't be reasonable and play this game effectively, right?
Yeah.
You gotta pick a side, get off the fence.
Yeah, that's true.
I do want to talk a little bit about Kenya because this was not a great lunch for her, and I think overall this has not been a very good season for her. I am surprised at how much she is acting like a henchman for Candy, which is not something that we typically see from her. Like, she's usually a lot more independent and kind of playing her own game, but we're seeing her, I don't know if she's just kicking her feet up and being like, okay, I'm just gonna be a henchman for Candy this season, and that's going to carry me through. And it'll get her through because I think she's still a very great housewife and very entertaining, but a little disappointing to see that she's not, playing her own game and really just riding Candy. And, that's a crowded bench on Team Candy, right? Because Drew is also there, and that's basically all that she's doing. And Drew, it's more by necessity. I don't think that she is as much of a heavy hitter as Kenya is, and not as skilled at operating within the Housewives game. So she kind of needs to latch on and be making things happen for Candy. So it's kind of disappointing to see Kenya just like kicking her feet up this time around. It is entertaining to see her. I think that she's funny when she's when she's sniping, and like she knows when to be unreasonable, and what is going to make for good TV. So it's not, you know, I'm not sad about it, but
Yeah.
I am disappointed.
It was actually a really funny bit when she starts like choking, and most people's reaction seems to be like, "Oh, Kenya's pretending to have another medical emergency," and then she's like, "Oh, sorry, I was just got some bullshit stuck in my throat or something." Like, okay, she was doing a bit. All right,
Was she the one who said "bottom rung bitch"? Was that Kenya throwing that?
Yeah, she said that 7 or 8 times.
Yeah,
which is hilarious because in that doctor's appointment scene, I wrote down a note. She pulls out a Ziploc bag of tissues, like used napkins, and she uses that. Like the editing just caught it, and I'm like, that seems kind of bottom rung. You just have a Ziploc bag of used tissues, like napkins and stuff. Like she's been stealing napkins from these. Like I don't know. I was like, what's with this
very
bag?
bizarre thing.
Yeah, that's a pretty bottom rung bitch status. If you ask me, I don't know.
I think that about covers everything that I wanted to get into in terms of Atlanta. Did you guys have any final thoughts before we talk about Orange County?
Just quickly, that I liked how they make it a thing that Sheree got an endorsement from Rihanna.
Oh,
flash a text on the screen that quickly enough that if you weren't paying close attention, you might think it was like a tweet from Rihanna saying that she endorses She by Sheree, which is not what it is.
Like a publication says.
Yeah. And I checked it up, and there's a video where somebody asks Rihanna on a runway, like, "Oh, are you going into athletics wear? Coming for She by Sheree?" And she's like, "Yeah, Sheree's great. Yeah, but I'm not playing that game. All right, see you later." That's like what they try to spin as an endorsement. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's great.
Well, Rihanna is like a noted fan of reality TV and the Housewives shows, so
of course she has impeccable taste.
Yeah, absolutely. She's also a big fan of Big Brother, so just want to put that out there. It's she has endorsed Big Brother, unlike She by Sheree. Okay, let's talk Real Housewives of Orange County. Jordan, what did you think of Orange County and the cast of characters here?
So yeah, definitely kind of a big jump. I started with Atlanta and then Orange County second. It seems like a little more like worn in, you know what I mean, as a show, like a little bit more, at least to me. They seem like there's some wily vets. Editing is even more kind of frenetic and crazy. Like it starts off on a dog humping, and then like the husband being like, and then it kind of cuts away again, you know? So, I'm gesturing so emphatically. It was interesting, right? Like, I feel like the families are more involved in Orange County. Like the kids are getting kind of some stage time there. But yeah, like a different kind of sniping. Like Atlanta seems a little more like in your face, whereas this a little more, kind of catty behind closed doors, layers of mind games going on.
Yeah, I'm curious to know who you thought was the most experienced housewife on this cast. Who you thought seemed like they had the most years under their belt?
I think Tamara.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tamron.
Just a missing vowel. She's kind of like Larsa that way. Sometimes they just drop a vowel somewhere.
Just for fun. Yeah. She I guess was she, so her business was being shut down?
Yeah, they were
so
closing down
I don't know, I got
business.
the vibe from her because like everyone kind of like, you can tell like the main person has a bit of a gravitational pull that the others kind of are in orbit of, and it seemed like she was kind of the full, like it was her event, maybe that's what it was, but
so this is her first season back after being off air for I think about 3 seasons or so. It's been a while since we have seen her, but she's back, and she is definitely a very experienced housewife. She knows the game inside out. She like wrote a lot of the rules for the game, so that definitely has an impact. But I think there's also an element at play that is kind of interesting for me in Orange County is she's kind of this free agent. Like she's a star free agent, and everyone is kind of circling her and hoping that they can enlist her to be on their side. And that's kind of an interesting dynamic for me on this show. What were your thoughts on the other Housewives?
So Heather, obviously the former actress. I looked up the show that she was on. It was Jenny McCarthy's show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's what it said. I think that's what I found. So it was like because they had like a headshot of her like in the '90s, like she was on
yeah.
NBC's Jenny. So I kind of tried to look some of that up, but I think it was Jenny McCarthy. She played like the best friend or something like that. She seems like the most kind of together, but also like she's an actress, right? So like seemed like she was putting on a lot of stuff. Um, Shannon with the crystals, she seems like kind of the older, kooky.
Yeah.
I really like the husbands in this one. They're kind of included more because like they
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of seem like ugh, like they're just kind of going along. I don't know. Maybe I kind of was getting attached to them. Um, Emily's the one who had the kids, right? She had the kids at the pool party.
Yeah.
She seems like I kind of like her, right? She's kind of like the fun kind of comic relief who's like doesn't take it too seriously. It seems like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Heather, and then what else we got here? Who am I missing? Jen
Jen and Gina.
Jen and Gina. Okay, yeah. So Gina seems like she's like kind of like the hungry upstart, trying to make a name for herself. Like she's coming in hot. Um, and then Jen was which one's Jen again? What is Jen? I got my notes on Jen somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't
Jen
know. I have a
is
hard time telling blondes apart.
yeah. Jen is the newest addition to the Orange County roster, so she is definitely the least experienced of the bunch. Remains to be seen how effective she's going to be this season. I think right now she seems like blood in the water to me, but she could have a good, strong finish to the season. It's hard to say.
Interesting.
What were your highlights from this episode?
So coming in here, it's interesting the stuff that the crystal stuff was fun because that lady seemed annoyed at her, like
Yeah.
the crystal lady wasn't into it.
Can we talk about that crystal lady? Because man, she was spooky.
Yeah.
What was going on with that crystal lady? Man, that was I feel like she keeps some special crystals in the back for her pipe. She was a little fucking weird.
And also, like, how much is that storefront property in Orange County? How much are you moving these crystals for? Like, that's what, I don't know. I got distracted.
I don't think you should underestimate the crystal market, the healing crystal market in Orange County, California.
Oh man, I'm like, what are these crystals? What are you charging for these crystals? You have like storefront packed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That was an interesting. And then just the conversation they had where they're like, "Oh, are you water or fire?" And I'm like, "Are they making this up as they go along?" Like, it's kind of like,
yes.
And his birthday is October 30th. You're water. I'm like, what? It's not even astrology, man. Like, I couldn't. That was
water put out by fire, it'll make hot water.
That was the husband's like, I don't know, honey, hot water. Let's get out of here. These guys just seem tired.
Like, steam is right there. Like, oh no, we're steamy. Like, why not go for that?
Hot water. He's like, yeah, we're hot water, not steam. Yeah,
your flame's not that high.
I kind of liked when Heather kind of dunked on the other lady about in regards to acting, right? She's like, that's not a role you can offer me because she had all this like kind of insider knowledge. And then they did the thing where it's like, these are all the steps that are involved. And she's just flexing hard. I'm like, she makes a good point there. I kind of enjoyed
she's
that
really
scene.
trying to flex her acting creds real hard there.
Oh yeah.
Even in the scene with where the acting coach comes in, she's like, "Oh, what have you been in?" Like, shut up.
I like how she shows up to to do like a read in a friend's living room, dressed like she's gonna like arbitrate a Wimbledon final. Like, why are you dressed up like that, Heather? Come on, take it down a rung. It's not like you were in Step Up, okay?
Yeah, no kidding. That's a way bigger credit than Jenny McCarthy's '96 failed pilot. And then like the acting coach, all of her experience was like Broadway stuff, right? So she said, we'll just start with vocal exercises. Like it was like they read the thing, she didn't give her any feedback on the read, and then just went into vocal stuff, and then that blowjob joke, right? She's like, which like they must have told her to say that. I don't think she's like, yeah, suck some dick. That'll help open your throat so that you
Yeah.
can get a different register. Like that's your first bit of acting advice. I guess it's Hollywood. I don't know.
Yeah. Dylan, what were your highlights from this?
I liked Emily's house actually. Unlike it seemed like less of just like a vacant void like some of these houses do.
Yeah.
It seemed more like a Victorian museum with like a bit of like the Mission Revival like archways and stuff going on. Very like ostentatiously over decorated in like a very out of date way, but that's like it felt like a classic like gesturing towards being a rich opulent person kind of aesthetic that I kind of appreciated. And then of course because it's Orange County, she's got like bowls full of like individual packets of Pringles for her children to eat because they don't know how to feed themselves with things that don't come from a gas station. I don't understand.
Yeah, I was
why.
like, oh, did you like knock over a cart on an airplane for these?
It was in the kid's rider. Like it looks like it was set up like it was in a rider. Like
Yeah.
8 things of Pringles.
Exactly 3 after me barbecue.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. I always like to see a new house. One thing about Heather that I do appreciate is that she knows how the DEF CON system works. That's
Yeah.
a lot of people assume that DEF CON 5 is the highest level, but it's actually the lowest level. She got it right, so credit where it's due. It's a lot more on the mark than Kanye's Death Con 3, so she was much closer.
Do you think she's a CIA asset or something?
Could be.
She's trying to tell us something.
Yeah, let's develop this theory a little bit more.
But DEFCON 1 is like full on war. Like, so that they'd be going at it trying to kill you. It's probably closer to a DEFCON 2. Right? If we're gonna get into the DEFCON. I mean,
DEFCON 1, the weapons are in the air, right? I think it's like
the nukes are launched. Like it's on.
Yeah. I really liked Ryan Tamra's son just sauntering in with a couple tumbleweeds.
Oh yeah, Yellowstone, yeah.
Full on High Plains drifter, I just like how he just shows up like that, wearing his hat and everything, wearing a full cowboy outfit that looks like he just bought at Target and is like all totally in great condition.
There's no way he's not bullied on that ranch. Like, there's no way those ranchers are bullying the shit out of him.
Yeah, when he's on that ranch, he's like the twink in that Jane Campion movie, Tower of the Dog. He's getting it from all sides. And then you see him in the background, and he's clearly like filming reels. He's doing like 360 videos and stuff, and it's like, all right, that's awesome. Your rule though. That's great show.
Yeah,
by Ryan.
He's someone that we've seen a lot of in the past seasons when Tamara was on, and this this straddling in, pushing the barn doors or the bar doors open, and reinventing himself is just so funny. It's like when a kid like shows up in costume and is like, "Yep, this is who I am. This is me.
It's not a phase, Mom."
Yeah.
She's like, we were gonna buy him a ranch because he's into this now.
Yeah.
We'll get you your first cow for your birthday.
Yeah.
Is that Ryan? Oh my gosh!
How are you?
Hi, it's been so long.
Cowboy now. He's a cowboy.
Hey, look at you, Mr. Rancher.
I do like how Tamara goes really hard into apologizing. Like, it's rare to see like a full on unreserved apology in these shows. Like, not a conditional apology, not like an accusatory apology, but an actual just like straight up, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I was so wrong, real apology. And Tamara goes so hard into apologizing that like Shannon doesn't seem to know what to do. Like she's put off by it, she's baffled by it. It's like an onslaught of apologizing that won't end. First up,
and it still wasn't enough for her.
She's like, you need 2 years. Like, you gotta get. There's 2 more years of apology. Like, it wasn't enough. Yeah.
It was just funny to see her like overwhelm her with apologizing to the point where it starts to feel like an attack or a joke.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of enjoyed that. It'll be fun to see where that goes from there. And then the way that it ending with a cake fight is always really fun, even though I feel feel bad for the cake. Like Emily, I'm like, that's kind of too bad that you're wasting the cake, but it's funny. It's a classic way to end a scene, have people smear cake at each other, and then end it with them like handheld footage of them stumbling around, trying to run away, smeared with gray, like 9/11 footage. Was horrifying and lovely.
Yeah, I just kept picturing like the guy who made the cake on like standing to the side, like he spent hours making the dumbbell and like he's like, what the hell?
My fondant.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea, whole concept too of your business is shutting down, so you have a party. Like how many business owners are like, we're having this big opulent party because our business failed.
What did you guys think about Gina this episode?
She's like, hey, there was a tweet that may or may not have could be conveyed this way. Like that was a stretch. And then she's like, I just can't let things go. I'm like, you're trying hard. You're trying to be the agitator here. She's really trying to fit that role.
Yeah, she's working hard here. I think that this was smart of her. I think, the way that Jen was introduced on this show was as friend of Tamara, and everyone, the game right now seems to be to try to get Tamara on your team so that you can move forward. And I think that this was a smart move from her to, put a wedge in there, because a lot of people are looking at this, at least Heather especially is looking at this as, the threat is that Shannon and Tamara, who have a long history together, are going to come together and, be a force. But I think people don't necessarily see that Jen could also be someone that Tamara just aligns with and runs with. So for her to immediately kind of toss that out there, I thought was really smart. And I also liked how, she gave this information also to Heather just to kind of bounce things off, because there's kind of an uneasy alliance that exists there. And Heather's like, oh, just, don't say anything. And she did it anyways, which I think was, the right move. But I think that, someone like Heather, who has more seasons under her belt, but not a lot of seasons with Gina, still underestimates Gina's ability as a housewife in order to like play her own game. So I really liked seeing this. I am curious to see, what Heather's read of this situation is going to be after. And I also think that it was smart when, afterwards, when everyone was getting into it with Jen over, the inconsistencies in her story about her affair, that Gina removed herself from that situation, because that would have been an opportunity for Jen to really focus on Gina as being someone that is like forcing people to gang up on her. And the fact that she removed herself from that situation and, was not a part of that, I think it gives Jen less to work with to come back at Gina.
Yep. Good read.
She got ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was awkwardly carried off. I think Gina was, she's doing a job. She had a thing to do.
Yeah.
She is, she had to start a line of attack. She did it. She did what she had to do, but I think it was inelegantly executed.
She went with the hammer, not the scalpel. She just was like, hey, did you see this tweet? Like, who does that in the middle of a dinner? It's funny when, like, you're right though, Heather, like, yeah, I guess, like, Heather's like, anytime there's like some common sense, it's immediately, it's not rewarded, like, which is funny. Like, Heather, maybe don't bring that up, which is what any one of us would have said. And then she says, boom, immediately, I'm doing it.
I don't think that like she thought that this was going to be a kill shot. It was more of like a probe to see where that relationship was at, and if there is like cracks there, which obviously there are, because we've seen in like confessionals and scenes that don't involve Gina where Tamara has expressed some like concern about how Jen has operated through the course of this affair. And so to put out this like feeler and to see, how Tamara truly aligns herself with Jen, I think it was a smart way to gather information. And I don't think that she's going to get a lot of blowback for it. I think, Tamara immediately was like, okay, I see where Gina's coming from with this, because this is something that is very personal. This business is very, like, business closing down is a very personal thing. So yeah, I thought that this was smart. It wasn't executed super elegantly, but I don't think that it needed to be. I don't think that, she wasn't trying to set the wheels in motion in anything, that is going to play out any longer than just like gathering information and kind of stoking this divide and making sure that Tamara isn't becoming closer to someone that isn't someone that is aligned with her.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any fallout from it, though. I think if the one that's going to have fallout is the accusations they're trying to make about Jen, cheating with on her old partner with her new partner. That seems to be the one that's like actually reverberating a little bit, which
She
seems a
got
little
grilled.
prudish to me. But whatever, that's what they're going to run with. That's what they're gonna use as their anti-Jen line of attack.
Yeah, she was getting grilled there for a minute, and then she's like, just own up to it. And then you're right, there was a sidebar where she's like, this is what happened, so she's gonna stick to those guns. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think our Gina seems like she's actually the most impacted by it. Like, this seems like it stirs up actual true emotions from her. And so to see her remove herself from that position of getting too emotional about it and immediately like causing a divide and a battlefront, I just think it was smart. I think that Gina has really shown her chops as an experienced housewife, and it's not something that we have actually seen a lot from Gina in the past. But while I was watching this, I was like, oh man, Gina is actually really good at this.
I'm not sure she's really good at being a real estate agent, though. We'll see. Based on those two questions, I could be a real estate agent in 5 seconds. That seems easy as shit.
Yeah,
Sign me
it's
up.
like, do you steal? Don't steal. And she's like,
it's like, do you call back your clients promptly? It's legally obligated. It's strongly recommended. I think it's legally obligated. Like, what?
I had that exact thought. I was like, I'm gonna go get my broker's license down in California. That was wild.
What other highlights did you guys have?
Oh, the demolition conversation that they had, where they're like, yeah, we're just going to tear down this wall. And they put like 2 dents in it and then they stop to talk.
Yeah,
then contractors are coming in. They're like, the wall's still here. Like,
the contractors are just waiting off scene while they filmed her a little bit. Because at the end, they're like, yeah, well, that's a good day's work. Like, yeah, there's 3 holes in the wall.
Yeah.
Bravo. Yeah. Pat yourselves on the back.
Yeah. Why are you guys demoing the wall? Like, whose idea was that? That was fun. And then they have their goggles on. They're just like, I had to stop and take a chat. It was like, that was fun. And there's a really nice shot of like a smoky drywall coming out of the hole in the wall. Like, they just were working so hard.
Dylan, did you have any other highlights?
That about covers it, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think that about covers it for me. I think the only other thing that really stood out to me was when they do the like hibachi rice toss. Have you guys ever had that done? Isn't it like so degrading feeling? Like, just
I've never done that.
Just getting like
I would absolutely feel like a seal at SeaWorld if somebody did that to
me. I was down in Mexico at a hibachi restaurant on a resort.
You went to the Dreams Natura Resort?
Yeah. And it was just like on Vanderpump Rules. But yeah, it like as soon as the chef did the like rice sauce and I like went for it, I was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? This is I'm gross.
That's why that killer whale fucking murdered those people, you can understand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the humiliation got too much. It's just like, I'm gonna drown a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Tilica just fucking dragging him down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that about covers it for me as well. Any final thoughts?
Definitely, I'm not sure if it's funny because I was like trying to bug my girl. I'm like, yeah, watch this with me. Like, it'll be, and she was like, no, but it was because she was like scared of getting sucked into it. Like, she was like, if I open this Pandora's box, I think the other one was like Love Is Blind or something, and I'd come home and I'd catch her watching it. She's like, I just gotta finish it. Like, it's one of those like mind bugs. So I'm like, it'll be interesting to see if same thing happens to me, and I'll be bugging you guys for the next 5 weeks to catch up on what's going on.
Oh yeah, we hope so.
That's the whole point of this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Jordan. It's been a blast. Do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can check me out. Just even on Instagram, just Jordan Welwood. My name, one L in Welwood. I'm going to be posting some clips in the near future, and then season 3 Roast Battle Canada is coming out. I believe first on CTV and then eventually Crave. So they haven't announced it yet, but it should be coming out sometime later this summer.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that. Dylan, you're going to be off for a couple weeks. We're going to miss you, but we're going to have a good friend of mine and Bravo fanatic, Sandy Kloak, keeping your chair warm. Looking forward to that. We got some banger episodes planned out for that. Dylan, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you or tease what you're working on?
Well, if you hear the sound of my voice and you think, man, I'd really love to hear that dude talk about Toby Hooper and Mario Bava movies, well, you can look up a show called Mind Over Splatter about horror movies and culture. Working on a new project that's going to be related to cryptozoology, and that's why I'm taking a little step back to try to get that finished. So hopefully I'll have something that I can announce when I come back. But yeah, it'll be away for at least a couple of weeks. So feel free to skip those episodes. They're going to be fucking terrible.
No, we're really looking forward to it. So we've got a musician coming on next week named Rusty Robot, and we're going to be looking a little bit into housewife music. And then after that, we've got an architect named Billy Chung coming on. Looking forward to that, to explore what physical spaces mean to reality TV. And
oh, man, you're doing the good shit without me. Okay, never mind. It's going to be good while I'm gone. They're going to have a fucking robot playing music or something. It's just going to be weird.
Yeah, so be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on that. We're on Instagram at Bravo Outsider. We're on YouTube, Bravo Outsider. On Twitter at Bravo_Outsider, I think. You can find us online, bravooutsider.com. Until next week, keep on wifing.
Get wifed.